Hi, this is Ted. Today I'm going to be talking about Abraham, Isaac, Sarah, and Hagar. Abraham, leader of a clan. His wife, half-sister, they trusted people in their own groups. They didn't trust people outside in all likelihood. That is the main reason why he marries his half-sister. And it'll be the reason why his son and his grandson will marry people who were cousins, because you trusted people in the family. You didn't really trust people outside. And you'll see that in a lot of the stories in Genesis, the distrust they had for outsiders. Now, when you read the Bible, what you want to do is put yourself in the shoes of everybody involved in the story. It helps bring alive the story and helps you understand it from different angles. So I'm going to do that today. In particular, I'm going to choose the four people: Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, and Isaac. Okay, so to begin with, you have Abraham and Sarah. Sarah is without child. It's mentioned and it's emphasized she is without child. In fact, she is introduced as barren, without child. It's doubled. It's emphasized. It is telling you she is without child, because that's very important to the storyline. How do you feel like if you are Sarah? In our culture, well, you learn to live with it. But in their culture, it was far deeper than that. Because in their culture, a woman without a child is not good. So how does she feel like when her husband tries to pawn her off as his sister and not his wife in two different cities to protect himself? How do you feel like if you are Sarah? From his point of view, because he doesn't trust people outside of his group, he's just protecting him. He's making sure that he lives and nobody steals his wife and kills him to do it, because he knew that she was a good-looking woman and anybody would want to take her. And definitely kings in both places want to take her. But God protects her in both places. How does it feel like from her angle? How does it feel like from her angle to be without a child for so long? And to hear your husband saying, God is telling me I'm going to have a son. And you realize it's not going to come from me because I'm just too old. And you have a servant and you say, take her. How does that feel? How does it feel when she becomes pregnant and tables are turned? She begins to walk arrogantly. How does it feel? We're told that Sarah went to her husband and complained about this. And he says, she's your servant. Do what you want. And then the Bible tells us she dealt with her harshly. And that word harshly could very well be she punished her to the point of beating her. Now, how does it feel like to be Hagar? To be a servant, probably all your life in servanthood. Maybe your mother and father were servants, and you knew that you were on the low part of society. And all of a sudden, you are honored. You are put in a position of being the most noble in a clan, to the very leader of this clan, and you're going to have his baby. It feels good. And all of a sudden, the tables are turned, and the person in charge of you begins treating you terribly because she's bitter. She's angry. Things are going bad for her, and she takes it out on you. You run away, you weep, you cry, you run off into the desert. And there in the desert, God says, you are going to have a son, and he is going to be an amazing man of God. But it's time for you to go back and you serve that woman. And she goes back. Now, at this point, Sarah learns that she too becomes pregnant. At an old age, she thought she could no longer have children, and she becomes pregnant. And she gives birth to a son. And from the beginning to the very end of his life, he needs to be protected. He needs to be watched over. While everybody else took their own lives in their own hand, did their own thing, in his case, servants lead him and are told by Abraham to guide him properly. He's different. He needs protection, and he needs most of all the protection of his mother. And when mother sees him being mocked by the older brother, the son of Hagar, how does she feel? She feels like a mother. I'll tell you that right now. She goes to Abraham and says, I want that woman out of here. How does Abraham feel about that? That's my son. But God says, you listen to your wife. And so he sends Hagar and the son out. How does she feel now? Hagar feels, I'm going to die. I have nothing. But God protects her and takes care of her and helps take care of her. How does it feel now as Sarah becomes the sole mother of this group? The one with the child belonging to, and the one destined to become the next leader. How does it feel when Abraham is told by God, take your son and offer him up? How does Isaac feel being tied up by dad and watching him pull out a knife? How does it feel? Now we know the story. You know, if you haven't read Genesis, it's a good story. It's an interesting story. We know the story that God will stop him. An angel will stop him and say, now we know you fear God. And all of a sudden, Abraham sees off in the bushes a goat, and he takes it and he offers that instead. But I want to ask that question. How does it feel to be in Isaac's shoes? Now, I have one other question, and this is really what it comes down to. If you are Abraham and you have gone through this, are you going to tell your wife, I went and offered, I was going to kill your son. I really knew God could raise him up, but I was going, would you ever tell your wife? What do you think he said to Isaac on the way home? If I were in Abraham's shoes, I'd be saying, listen, your mother doesn't need to know about this. All right, this is Ted. You all have a good one.